My name is Sister Maureen Lamarche, and I've been a CND for almost 60 years. I'm getting there, and I've been in Japan for 46 years. It was before the war, in 1932, and we were invited by the Bishop of Sendai at that time, who was a Dominican. I think in the church at that time, Asia was coming into focus as a missionary territory, and in Japan there were many communities south of Tokyo and in Tokyo, but we are in the part of Japan that most people avoid, and there were no schools for women there. So that fit perfectly into the CND mission. That's how we got to Fukushima. Before the war, there was no permission to build schools. But after the war, because there were many orphans, they had to do something about them. And that was how our school began, was for the orphans of the war. And the sisters had just come back after the war from Aizu, an area where they were under house arrest, I guess you would say. And they had really suffered a lot, the foreign sisters especially, but the three Japanese sisters who were novices, they took care of our sisters. They went to their homes, brought food, because nobody could sell to foreigners at that time or give them anything. So it was, the beginnings were very hard, but at the same time the spirit was there. During the war, the convent was a prisoner of war camp. There were people, about 150 people from all around the world. So then the school gradually moved forward. We had the elementary school. In the beginning were what they call Quonset huts, wasn't a building. And there were a few fires, but gradually we built a school and moved from the elementary up to the junior high school. The school developed up to the level of a junior college. And junior colleges were very popular in Japan, training young women to go out to work or also for domestic. We had again, in the CND tradition, we had what they called home economics in those days, and English. And it started out with the French, also French and English, and our French-Canadian sisters contributed to that whole building of the school. My family was very Catholic, very religious, and also all of my education was with CNDs. They were in Kingston, my hometown. So from grade 1 to grade 13, I was taught by the CND sisters. And when I was reading the Catholic newspaper one day at home, we always had the Catholic newspaper, and it was the month of May, I remember clearly. And in the month of May, they introduced different religious communities. And because I was a member of Sodality and very involved in volunteer work and that kind of thing, so I was reading about the schools, the White Sisters of Africa. And while reading that, don't ask me how it happened, but all of a sudden I knew I had to be a sister. It just came out of the blue. From there, I was only 17, and I was ready to take off the next day. Fortunately, there were some sensible people around. Let's finish high school and then see if you really, this is for sure. So from there, next year, I entered the CND, 1956. August, and they ask you all kinds of questionnaires, you know, to sign at some point when we're in the novitiate. One question was, if you were asked to go to a foreign country, would you be willing to go? And very easily I checked yes. So when they said, would you go to Japan? That was kind of came back 12 years later. I had to answer that to that check mark. It was freezing cold and lots of snow in Ottawa, and I went outside and walked, and I kept shouting to the wind, Japan, Japan, and it just kept repeating it. And so then I was able, finally I said yes, I'll go, and it's 2 years. So I like to tell people that my first Mass in Japan was Pentecost Sunday, and the first words I heard in Japanese, which I only knew later, the Spirit of the Lord fills the whole world. So every year, when Pentecost Sunday rolls around, it brings back the memory of that day. And the next week I was teaching typing to the students, a great group of students. So that was the beginning of my career in Japan, and even though it was 2 years, I said, you know, I had a feeling it might be more than 2 years. Marguerite's mission, the mission of the CND in Japan was to go to the areas where no one else wants to go. And I feel that is really the part of Marguerite Bourgeois' spirit, charism, that we carried and do carry to Fukushima. It's very difficult to get good teachers in Fukushima, to live in Fukushima, to stay in Fukushima. So the sisters were a very stable part of the school situation, which of course is changing now. But if it hadn't been for the sisters, the education of women in that area would have been quite different.